Díagwic Galéir, Tommy don Seanish Helm Dev Weekly Call. Igor the Dairdin the 7th of Bealtaine year 2000. So welcome everyone today. You're on the Dev Weekly Call for Thursday, the 7th of May 2020. So as usual, we're going to talk about any announcements, and then we'll head into the discussions and assignments then for the week ahead. So without further ado, and our announcements are quite bare this week. I am cutting a release 3.2.1 that will get out the end of the day or tomorrow sometime, depending on my issues I'm having. But thanks to Matt Farina for giving me help with the issues I don't know commits. So yeah, we'll get that before the end of the week anyway, because there's a good few PRs in that. Any other announcements? Okay, all is quiet. So let's head into the discussions. And first off, we have is it around the Helm repository cache.
So this is with respect to the Helm repository cache. So this was a discussion that was taken up last time. It was basically like you should be able to download charts without, you should be able to install charts without having to download them or put them in a cache. So after the PR got reviewed last time, there was a suggestion that maybe put the environment variable as either empty or off. So I just wanted to maybe have a discussion on this as to what would be a good approach. So currently in the implementation, there is a LRU cache backing the downloader, and if the Helm repo cache is set to off, then the chart would be downloaded to the cache and then will be used from there. So currently that's the implementation. I just wanted to know, like, if there's something that might be good for as an addition or something, maybe.
So the use case is you want to install a chart without it ending up in the cache.
No, actually, use case is want to run Helm on a read-only file system. That's actually the thing.
The use case is to run Helm on a read-only file system. Okay, no, that's really important. So, and the commands you're trying to do here are things like Helm install.
Yeah.
And Helm upgrade. It would be specific to run Helm install and Helm upgrade on a read-only file system.
And template, yeah.
And Helm template on a read-only file system. Is there an issue that captures this somewhere?
Yeah, it does. It's given on top of the PR itself. So I think, Matt, you had replied on it with respect to something with respect to I don't know, like a pluggable cache you mentioned. Let me just check it here.
Oh, I might have. There's been so many things.
Yeah, so the title of it is, it's 7545 is the issue, and it's about using the memory cache instead of file system cache.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we can even live without memory cache at all. What is the whole point here is simply that you download the chart from internet, but not really save it locally for the later usage, and just use it immediately. So that would be also okay.
That won't work on a read-only file system because you don't have a place to download to.
Well, to keep it like temporarily in the memory, in some buffer, create a chart structure, and then simply discard it. Because I mean, in CLI, you have invocation. Once you start a CLI, you do this thing, and then the cache is anyway gone. So we can spare ourselves to keep things in the memory anyway. So one-time thing, yeah.
Okay, so it's really about keeping the chart in memory and installing from there to where it never writes the chart to the file system.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I want to capture that on the ticket because it gets into the case. This may touch, there was another issue that Matt Butcher had commented on, and so I want him to look at this, but there are some assumptions throughout Helm about where things land up in caches and things being updated before something can be done. And so I think there's a number of moving parts here that need to be looked at in order before we can get to this. So it's going to be a little bit more. So I'd want him to look at it, but this will take a little while to kind of ferret out. But I totally understand that use case makes sense. I'll add it to the ticket so everybody knows. But I think with that as a goal, is important to get to. That makes sense.
Is this related to the home.cube cache? The home.cube cache, where the discovery client saves all the stuff that has been installed. Is it related to this? Because I think the other day, Matt Butcher, he commented on one of the bugs I was working on, and he had the same issues with it, that something like the discovery client downloading it, like the cache not being in line with what is actually happening in the cluster, something along those lines.
Yeah, I don't know if that's exactly related. I think what's different here is dependent on when it updates the cache, etc., and the current logic flow within Helm itself, so that we need to probably get a bit of an understanding of what you're trying to do here and what the effects are then as we go through, as it goes through its normal installs or upgrades.
No, there's a good point though here, is if Helm is going to be logged in to a Kubernetes cluster to run the install and upgrade command, how does that work without writing to the file system? And then you pull down a cache so that Helm is able to introspect, here's the CRDs and the other things about the cluster, and that certain information that kube control has, how does that work in a read-only file system? Because it's not just Helm that has to do it, it's that other information as well that's a lead up that's outside of that process that Helm is running. Have you worked out that yet?
Not exactly. So haven't worked out the what happens in the cache in the dot cube. So this is something I only stumbled upon day before yesterday, but I think I think I'll give it a look and update it and see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is Helm template could run in a read-only file system with the changes we made to Helm, but Helm install and upgrade are reliant on outside information from kube control, you know, your authentication to the cluster, and then being able to have certain details about the cluster. And so
and those
that
things are
part,
injected via volumes, right? So you get access to them in a pod, like certificates, kube configs, and whatnot. So they're injected as a volume. What we are speaking here about is the pod. I mean the service or whatever what we are running really in the pod. So we would like to have it in a read-only file system due to various reasons. Security is one of them, and it's clearly we could move cache into in-memory, you know, RAM disk, which is also mounted and so on, but we simply would like to avoid that if possible.
Yeah. I understand. I just want to make sure that all of the intricacies of this are captured and discussed. Pulling in from the kube config from so the other context is you're talking about running it in a pod, and you're pulling in the kube config that Helm will use from a mounted volume. These are kind of important things just to make sure they're captured. I'm glad you've thought of it.
One thought that would make me feel better about this effort is if we could test it with, I was thinking if you, Vibhab, if you could run a read-only Docker and test with that, because I think testing it or assuming it works just from code review is a is very risky. We have to somehow run it on a file, on a read-only file system, and make sure that everything works.
Definitely. Acceptance test will be kind of a good place to add such kind of, environment, right?
Ultimately, yeah, but if you have back and forth, it's going to be more costly. So I thought it would be a low cost.
For the time being, right, while developing on this, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's if possible. It's not a necessary, but it's a suggestion.
Okay. So let's see what you come back with on that, and also what your investigations around that, and see what you find, and update then the issue of the PR with what you find, if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I think I like the idea of trying to test it with a read-only container, and I'll try to give whenever I'm done with it, I'll try to give a demo here to show if it's really working or not. So I think that's necessary to get a clear understanding from everyone that it works or not. Okay.
One small
Yeah.
clarification from Predrag. I think you opened the original issue. The way it was described was you could write to the file system, but then you didn't want to leave things lying around. But really, is it a read-only file system, or is it,
So we started investigating on this. So we had an issues, and then we were, we could write, and we can still write, but there are like multiple concerns, like security, getting it, accessing charts, in the caches and so on. So what I just said today in the meeting is actually boils down to the use case. So we would like to really run Helm on read-only file system.
read-only? Okay.
To tighten the stuff as much as possible.
It might be worth putting a note in the original issue to say that the use case has slightly
we can
been
even
clarified.
like rephrase the whole issue if that's preferable.
Say that again?
We can rephrase the whole issue if that's preferable. To make it like clear what we actually want to address now, or create another one, whatever.
One question on that: if security is a big part of this, why would you still want to pull the charts from external repos? So normally, when you're really, really security conscious, and like what a lot of people do, especially around NPM, and I know NPM is a different animal altogether, and you can't trust everything up there, but generally what people there do is they create their own.
Yeah, but
system,
we
own
allow
repo.
customers also to grab to use any, to configure, to access, to install charts from arbitrary repo, and therefore we cannot control it completely. So we can by default, but we allow people to reach and access, install charts from other repos as well.
When they're installing the chart and you do something like Helm install, what are you using as the repo identifier for this? Are you using a full URL to a package? Are you using full URL to the exact package you want? Okay.
Going on what Martin was saying, this may be a little bit out there, but what if you forced local charts only? So the customer would need to pre-download the charts, and then you mount them in your pod, and then everything is already there local and nothing needs to be downloaded. It doesn't mean Helm will work. There might be stuff that gets done anyway.
Yeah,
I'm not
okay.
sure. But
to give you the bigger picture, actually, what we are doing, so we are not really using directly Helm CLI. So what we did is we wrapped CLI, but not redirected CLI. So we use Helm as a library, and we built a couple of endpoints which are exposing wire rest, install template, and a couple of more things. Therefore, we have a service which is running inside of OpenShift and installs then the charts on behalf of the log user. So through UI and so on. So therefore, we could download charts and do all this kind of machinery, but we thought simply to use as much as possible Helm in its native, behavior. So, and just restrict, not really store things on the file system if possible.
Okay.
A question
Well,
since
Mark, I'm going to time box it now because I'll let you have the last statement there, and then I'll time box it because we want to get Josh in on the OCI as well.
okay, I was just really quick for the maintainers that have much more experience than me. The reason why charts are downloaded in a cache was just simplicity, or there's really value in that? Because the cache kind of grows and.
I'm not exactly sure. For performance, we should just be able to pull things from the cache rather than downloading them again to install if you have it in the cache. I haven't looked at how well this is working as of late, but it would be a performance boost if the thing you have is already in your cache and you don't have to download it over the wire.
Of course. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. I just suggest, Vieb and Persev, if you can add some updates on maybe into the issue as well and just give a better idea of the overall use case and where it's coming from, because sometimes maybe it's a bit more in the weeds of the implementation more than what you're looking to do as well. Like, okay, thanks for that. So I'm going to hand over to Josh around OCI and coming out of experimental mode.
Hello. So I've been having a lot of questions recently about, some people are super excited about OCI stuff and they're wondering, they feel like it being marked experimental is preventing their organization from adopting it. So the question I have is, what do we think is appropriate? What are the necessary things that we need to do to make that not experimental? I don't think it's ready yet, but I'm just trying to get some opinions.
So, let me ask this. We're relying on, and I'll drop a link in here, the OCI artifacts support, right? And I just dropped in a link to that repository. So right now, they don't have a stable release of the artifacts to say this is how you do it in a stable form that's going to have backwards compatibility, right?
Sure.
So the API could change.
So, so there's a few things there. So distribution spec itself, we've been testing pretty thoroughly, and it actually supports the way that we're pushing charts. That is based on Steve Lasker's work in this artifacts link that you pasted, but there's no hard rule on distribution spec that is saying what we're doing with Helm is not kosher.
So let me ask this. Projects need like straight up guidance, like you're going to store your stuff in here and this is the way to do it, right? Because otherwise things get open to a lot of interpretation, and we who are a bunch of API consumers, are non-experts, have to work it out. Where is that recommendation of this is how the OCI believes it should be done? Where is that documented?
I mean, I think that's the artifact spec.
Now, what is the path to that hitting a stable, we're not going to do breaking changes to this anymore?
That's a good question, and I think it's a bit far out. A bit far out. I did post a link. There's a milestone, and we went over it yesterday on the OCI call of what, like, even distribution spec is not 1.0, so I think that's a prerequisite.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we're pushing really hard to get that out. But long and the short of it is that the API is really not going to change. There's a little bit of clarification around certain things like that are artifacts from the Docker registry. But it's pretty much 1.0, and people were making jokes too, like, you know, it's not like you're not using registries today. So even though it's not 1.0, right, you do use these APIs.
My question on that is, just, sorry, coming in on a quick question on that, Josh, is, and I think it's following on from Matt's, even if the API changes, can we have a 10-layer, will our API as such, or our CLI, abstract us slightly from any change that could potentially happen behind the hood? in that space.
Yes, but it would break, like, so if we were to turn off experimental and people started using it this way, and then we changed the API under the hood, and then you tried to pull things that were already pushed with the old version,
yeah.
it'd be broken.
Oh, yeah. It's the form.
Yeah, this is an experience problem. And this may even get into the OCI process. We're sitting here waiting on them to say, this is a stable, recommended thing, and this is how you should do it. Okay.
Yeah.
We, as just a consumer who wants to push and pull things from it, are saying, hey, how do we do it? When is it considered a stable recommendation? As in, you're not working on it anymore. You're not going to make backwards breaking changes. When's it a stable recommendation? When can we start using it? And I think that's going to be my big holdup. And if they are never going to come up with that, then why should anybody ever trust their API and their methodology to stick and pull things? I think that's what needs to happen, is they literally need to come out and say, here is a stable, this is our stable recommendation, and we're not going to make backwards breaking changes. We may make feature additions and we may increment a major version to break it, but we're saying that this direction is currently a stable direction. And if it's just going to be experimental and we don't know, then how can we ever trust their API and how we should use it?
Yeah, and I agree. So for the distribution spec, I foresee that being actually very soon for 1.0. And that'll actually open the doors to, like, how do we do search and registries for, like, next 1.1 and stuff. But once that's done, I'll refocus and start pushing on artifacts. The thing I will say, though, or I have two more things to say. One is I have information that I think I can disclose that many registries are about to drop support for Helm charts. So even though the client is experimental, the registry is going to allow them. That's one thing.
They're going to add support for Helm charts. They're going to add.
Yeah, in the current.
Oh, you said drop. That's like removing.
Oh, like, no, like drop
So
it
like
on the
add
world.
support. Yeah,
Drop it on the world.
That's a Chicago thing, I'd say.
Yeah, sorry. So it's kind of funny because they'll accept the uploads in the current experimental state, even though the client says it's experimental. So that's one thing. And then two, I was thinking the other day is, I think part of the headache is that when you run this, you're met with the error, like you need to enable experimental. Should we discuss making the experimental flags a more central part of the Helm CLI? Like if you had a Helm experimental enable OCI that you run one time, it's stored somewhere in your Helm config.
Yeah, but we don't have a Helm config. Our config is environment variables right now. We don't have a Helm config file. So to do that, we would then need to add a centralized Helm config, and then you would have to come up with, do environment variables, override or not,
exactly,
and then that would all need to be documented. And so that would be a feature that needed to be layered
That's
in.
exactly what I'm saying, though.
Okay.
And so, there's other stuff too, like Vibhav, who's on the call, like he actually added notary support. And so it's like, we're starting to see more things experimental. And I'm wondering if you just want to do a one-time enable this thing and it works across all shells.
Can't you just stick that in your like ZSHRC file and then it's there's your configuration?
Yeah.
Across all shells?
Yeah, but I don't like to write documentation that's like, hey, echo this thing into bash RC. And I don't know. I think it'd be a good experience thing.
The
I can open
configuration.
an issue. Go ahead.
I just saw, I think a while ago, maybe it was Matt Farina, or a question about having configuration has come up elsewhere. So there's an issue out there that they started discussing it.
Okay. There might be in that kind of thing. And I've talked about this before, and I'm sure there's an issue. If anything, like I would totally be cool with like a similar setup to like what Git has, like Git config, and then you specify your thing and then you can set details. That may totally be an option. And we now have standard paths you can write that to and store it to, but that would need to be layered in as a feature. And then we would need to figure out how do we do the others. But to sum it up, because I'm looking at the time here, I think the thing with the whole OCI support is stability, right? We take stability very conservatively in Helm because we don't want to break people. We understand that so many of the tools are running around are running fast and loose, and things are always changing, and that creates a lack of stability hell for people out there.
Yeah,
And
and
so
that's been my
stability is a
response.
huge thing. We're conservative about stability because we don't want to break people. And so everybody else is breaking people. The amount of headaches we have to deal with. I mean, Butcher added lint support recently because Kubernetes at 1.16 deprecated a bunch of beta APIs from workloads. And actually looking around, trying to find the documentation on that from the Kubernetes community. I dare you, because we
So
can't find it.
Okay,
And
I'm
so-
going to pull in. Hang on here. I'm going to have to rope in Mr. Farina there because he's on a roll.
Yeah.
And we could be here till
Yeah.
next Tuesday. So the end of this is Josh is going to get these people into a room and tell them that they have to come up with the.
I want to say
overall-
one final
Yeah,
thing though,
sorry.
Martin,
Yep.
not to cut off the moderator. So just to be clear though, the lack of UX on this is not the blocker; it's the spec.
Okay.
that would be my blocker. I mean, we don't know that this is stable.
Okay.
We don't know that it's stable for us to use.
But if you couldn't do Helm install OCI something, that's not what's.
No. This right here is the stability coming out of OCI. We've been debating and talking to them about this for years and actually saying, this is how people should go ahead and use it. Go stick your things in here. We're considering this a stable thing. Their lack of communicating that out and making that clear means I don't know if it's stable or if they're going to come in and debate some more and come up with a different direction, or if they're going to change API. I don't know. I don't know because they're not saying this is our stable direction. We said this is the chart spec, and the only thing we're going to do to it now is additive, and we'll have reverse compatibility in V2, right? We've said that, and anything we got to do for the chart spec is reverse compatibility is how it has to work in Helm. They're not saying anything like this. We can't trust their implementation because they're not communicating out, this is how it is, it's stable, you can use it.
Okay, so we're going to say stability on that. Josh should bring him into a room and sort it out. That's okay. All right, thanks very much. Now we are going to go to jobs. So anyone would like to do triage for the week ahead? Or have we gone dead? We've lost Mr.
I can.
Oh yeah, he's back. You're going to do triage, Matt, is that right?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to be moderator, MC, DJ for next week?
I can take that.
Thanks very much, Josh. And final one, I think Bridget has decided she's going to do notes. So thank you to Bridget. So thank you to everyone that joined today, and have a good day and a lovely weekend.
Bye. Good to see you.